My name is Brent Richardson, and I'm the biggest DC fan alive. When I was a child, I saw my dream of going to Comic-Con as being something impossible. It seemed like that it would never happen. Then DC All Access gave me a chance that was impossible. To the outside world, I'm an ordinary nerdy kid. But secretly, I use my love of DC to compete for a chance to go to Comic-Con and work for DC against others like me. And when this is over, I'll go to Comic-Con and get justice for my dreams. I am the Flash. Reviewer.
Did I look good? Did I look like I was going fast?
What's up, DC Nation? It's Brent. I made it to the top 10. Can you believe it? I cannot either. There's nothing that gets me more excited on a weekly basis in television than DC TV. Specifically what a lot of people refer to as the Arrowverse. I like to call it the DCW. Either way you slice it, it's Flash and Arrow. I could sit here and talk about how big of a fan I am, but instead, I'm going to show you. As someone who grew up their whole life reading Flash, there's nothing I want to do more on a Tuesday night than turn on the CW at 8, 7 Central and watch an episode of The Flash. And while I could sit here and talk for literally hours about just one single episode, in honor of the upcoming finale of The Flash next Tuesday, I'm going to sit down and do a super speed recap of the entire series up until this point. Okay, so it's going to be a super speed recap. I'm going to be a little jumpy from episode to episode. I'll annotate things out here so you can follow along with what I'm thinking. I'm going to try to hit the main story points as best I can. So, when he's a child, Barry Allen sees his mother murdered in a ball of lightning by a man in a yellow suit. His father blamed for the murder and taken to prison. Barry's then raised by a man named Detective Joe West, and he eventually falls in love with his daughter Iris and never tells her. Then Barry becomes a forensic scientist and is struck by a bolt of lightning created by an explosion of a particle accelerator, which was made by Dr. Alyson Williamson. Barry wakes up after a 7-month-long coma, greeted by Dr. Wells, Caitlin Snow, and Cisco Ramon. They discover he has super speed powers and uses them to beat evil metahumans like Clyde Martin, Multiplex, The Mist, Girder. There's Rainbow Raider, and Arrow actually helps him defeat Rainbow Raider. There's Blackout. When he defeats Girder the first time, actually Iris officially gives him the name as the Flash. It's not always metahumans. There's Leonard Snart, who eats a cold gun, created by Cisco's contingency of the Flash. Barry beats him. There's General Eiling, who kills metahuman Plastique. And we also find out that Eiling worked with Wells before, doing illegal military experiments on a monkey named Grodd. And then we go to Christmas, and the Man in the Yellow Suit comes back, and we find out Ronnie's not actually dead, but he's on fire, and he's kind of crazy. And Ronnie teams up with Barry, and they beat the Man in Yellow, and he runs back to his time vault. Harrison Wells actually has a time vault. That's in the first episode. We find out he's from the future. And we also find out in this episode that he's the Man in Yellow. He's the Reverse Flash. And then there's more metahumans like Pied Piper and Peekaboo. And before that, Captain Cold comes back with Heatwave. And they bring Flash out to public confrontation, and he beats him, but it's the first time everyone finds out the Flash is the real in public. And then Pied Piper goes to Cisco, and he's like, hey, I know where Ronnie is, and I can fix it. Find out Ronnie's actually merged with Professor Stein, who was there the night of the explosion with the Firestorm Matrix, and they're merged together, so they find Ronnie, calm him down like, hey, you're about to explode, and everybody's gonna die, but they separate him just in time, and then they're like, oh, we can control our fusion, and they go back together and control the powers, and they beat General Eiling again. Then Eiling gets taken to the sewers where Grodd is. Clyde Martin's brother comes back. He's the Weather Wizard. He's really angry. He maimed Joe. Cisco finds out that Wells is Reverse Flash and he gets killed. And then Weather Wizard makes a big tidal wave and Flash goes back and forth and he jumps back in time and stops everything from happening. And then he takes Weather Wizard in early, and Captain Cold comes back with Heatwave and his sister, Golden Glider, and they capture Cisco. Find out Barry's the Flash. And then Barry and Snart have this showdown. He's like, hey, don't kill people, and I won't tell. And Snart's like, okay, I won't tell anybody you're the Flash. And he's like, cool. The Tricksters comes to town, Axel Walker, James Jesse. They capture Barry's father. Barry beats them back. Adam comes to town, helps Barry beat the Bug-Eyed Bandit. There's a metahuman who can touch people and take on their identity, Handle base. Barry defeats him, and then they find the Time Vault, Barry, Cisco, and Caitlin, and they're like, oh gosh, Wells really is Reverse Flash, we gotta stop him. So they set this big elaborate trap to catch him, and they think he's outsmarting them, and then Joe's like, okay, we gotta do this before we get a confession, and he shoots Wells dead, and it's actually Hannibal Bates, and Wells like 75 steps ahead of him. He goes and kidnaps Eddie, who's Joe's partner, and also dating Iris, and Barry's not super happy about it, and he takes him into this vault place, and we find out it's actually part of Star Labs, and he's working on this thing to reactivate the particle accelerator and distract everybody. He makes Grodd come out, and they fight, and he almost kills Joe, and then Barry gets Grodd, and he hits him with the train, and then Wells is like, okay, I'm going to activate the particle accelerator, and he leaves, and Barry's like, oh gosh, if this thing goes off, it's going to kill all the metas, so we got to get him out, so he gets Captain Cold to help him move the metas, but then Cold stabs him in the back, and lets all the metas loose, and then he solicits Rainbow Raider and Weather Wizard to join the Rogues. And then we go back, and Wells is there, and the accelerator is about to happen, so Arrow comes, and Firestorm come, and they team up with Flash, and they beat Wells, and they finally have him, and that's where we end up. Next week's the finale. I can't wait for it. I can't even say any more about it. It's going to be amazing. Make sure you tune into the CW, 8, 7 Central, next Tuesday to catch that, and hopefully I'll see you next week as well in the continuing Correspondent search for DC All Access. Thanks for watching, guys.